homeland of the Corellian tradition, and this is Midday with Rev Don. Welcome. And I want to say hello to Black Crystal in the chat room. It's good to see you, Black Crystal. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Rev Don, you can type your questions or comments on whatever platform you're watching this on, and they'll appear here in my chat room, and we can talk directly. And today is our weekly roundup of interesting stories from the previous week. And in previous weekly roundups in the last few weeks, we have had interesting stories about animals, political stories, touching on the return of the Satanic Panic. This week, all of our stories are distinctly from the pagan community and our pagan community news. I have 3 stories for today, and one is happy, one is sad, and one is a continuation of a previous story that we've been talking about. And I hope that you will enjoy what I have to say about all of them. Hello to Reverend Michael in the chat room. It's good to see you, Michael. I'm going to start with the last of those, the continuation, and have a few more words to say about our Corellian lustration. So if you were following last weekend, and hello to Mary in the chat room. Hello to Reverend Mary Hawk. It's good to see you, Mary. We were live streaming all of the main ritual events from the Corellian lustration, including the double investiture. But if you are watching, you'll notice that our cameras died out as soon as the ritual began. And, the general consensus on this is that Spirit wanted that particular ritual to be for those people who had come in person to see it as a live event. And therefore, the live stream did not go forward. And hello to Reverend Brenda in the chat room, Brenda Pregandi. It's good to see you, Brenda. So we were not able to live stream that to you at the time. However, we did get footage of it, and we'll be live streaming it today at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, if you want to see that ceremony that we're not able to see live on Saturday. And you can still take part in it vicariously, even after the fact, which is true for all of the rituals that we have in our very deep archives. And you can get a feeling for what the ritual was like, and you can hear the very interesting oracles that were brought through during the ritual. And I want to say a word about the main oracle that I brought through in that ceremony without giving it away for you, but it was a very, I thought, eccentric message from the ancestors, but as I've been trained to do, I brought it through anyway. And I'm told that it kind of showed on my face that I thought they were going in a very odd direction. And I'm not going to tell you what that was. You have to watch the video to see. But after the ceremony, I was told by the new First Priesthood that the message was directly relevant to them and had a very personal meaning for them, and was very much a very personal message. And this is how oracles can be. As the person bringing them through, you don't necessarily understand everything that's involved. And hello to Reverend Antonio Huerta in the chat room. It's good to see you, Antonio. And Mary says, "Oh, yes, it did. Yes, indeed. It was a wonderful ceremony. I hope that you will watch it, and I think that you'll find it quite fascinating. And if you missed any of the live streams, of course, they're all eternally preserved in our, hello to Black Crystal again, eternally preserved in our archives, where you can go back and watch them even many years from now, because we're not going anywhere. I've said before that nobody's ever actually won any money by betting on my not being around in the future. And at a certain point, of course, that will no longer be true. But even when I am no longer here in this physical form, we will still be here. And you will still be able to see all of these pieces of pagan history that we have worked so hard to preserve. We think it's very important to do that. And this ceremony is only one of many that we have covered, including a vast number of Corellian lustrations, but also many other interesting ceremonies over the years, and many other events. And I want to say again how very happy I was with this weekend's lustration, and how pleased I am to see the younger generation moving forward so well and in such good hands. I've probably remarked upon it far too many times already. But it's kind of like being able to see what happens when you have crossed into spirit without actually having crossed into spirit. To still be here physically to be of assistance if needed, but to see that, yes, everything is in good hands, everything is moving forward, that good people are in positions of authority within the tradition. And I am very grateful for that and very happy for that. And, many of these people, I've literally watched them grow up. Um, all of them I've known for years. And hello to Zane in the chat room. It's good to see you. Just as I've known some of you for years. Um, Well, like Reverend Antonio. I mean, it was wonderful to get to meet Reverend Antonio for the first time physically at this lustration. But he's been here for a very long time, and so it was a great moment to be able to physically give him a hug and talk to him um, after having known him so long. I also have to say that the despachos and Reverend Antonio was in charge of the despacho ceremony. We talked about that the other day. They were pretty good at shutting down the cameras too. If you were watching my broadcast exactly 1 week ago, we did an interview with Reverend Antonio, and as soon as the despacho showed up, the video cut out. Uh, and Reverend Antonio says, "I had waited 6 years to shake your hand, and I'm so glad we got to do that. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to get to spend time with you, and I look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future." Um, and Reverend Mary says the despachos are camera shy. They have a very strong energy. One of the things that happens with energy, and we've talked about this before, and we'll undoubtedly talk about it again, at a certain level, psychic energy will shut down electronics. It will affect them in various ways. Um, Mary says they gave me a technical headache. Well, yeah, they kind of did. But a lot of things do that. One of my best memories years ago when we had the Witch School headquarters in Hoopston, we were doing it was the month of October. We were doing weekly seances, maybe more than once a week. I don't remember now. And I was doing some of them, and Lady Crystal was doing some of them. And one of the local news stations decided to come out and cover one of these. And part of the coverage involved Lady Crystal doing a psychic reading for. And hello to Reverend Dee Stinson in the chat room. It's good to see you, Dee Dee. Involved Lady Crystal doing a reading for the reporter. And as soon as she started, the camera shut down. The battery was completely drained, even though the reporter had made sure it was completely full before starting the filming. And remarked on this in their televised report. And it was a very vivid example of the fact that, yes, this energy is very real, and it can sometimes have this kind of effect on electronic energy. Um, and that happened during the double investiture ceremony. I believe that the live stream stopped about when I started talking, the very beginning of the ritual. Um, and sometimes that happens, and you have to be prepared for it. And if you remember, as we were leading up to the lustration, I did frequently remark that our ability to live stream it would depend on the technology. And I didn't necessarily say it bluntly, but the interaction of the psychic technology and the electronic technology. But for the most part, we did. And the last part comes to you this evening. And again, I think that everyone involved with lustration did a wonderful job. I am very grateful. Oh, and Reverend Dee Dee reminds me that the first elder was carrying a battery pack that exploded during the course of the weekend. The Right Reverend Laurie Blackman had a battery pack, and yes, it literally exploded because of the energy. Um, and Reverend Antonio says that was an unexpected effect. We've never made dispachos and put them in any type of recording. I was very surprised, and it's a good thing to know for the future. Yes, absolutely. I will point out that it may have been the particular interaction of the despachos and the particular ceremony for which they were intended in this case. because the ceremony also had the same effect. We have done the despacho ceremony before without having this problem occur, but this particular occasion had so much energy in it that it just was overwhelming. And I think that the people who were physically there would agree that the energy of the investiture was pretty overwhelming. It was beautiful. When you watch the video, I think you'll agree that the location was stunning. It was a beautiful day. We couldn't have asked for better. It was a little warm, but not so warm that we were dying in our state robes. Um, the sky was glorious. Um, Reverend Dee says, anyone that's planning to attend their first or another lustration in the future, bring Kleenex. I could not stop sobbing. It was a very emotional event for many people, and that's not entirely uncommon. It was even emotional for me in certain places. If you watched my commentary at the retirement dinner, I was a little more overcome than I normally would personally be. And Reverend Mary says, I melted. We'll take that as it may be. um, but it was a beautiful natural location for the double investiture. And I thought that visually and energetically and spiritually, it was unforgettable. And I hope that everyone else will have a similar feeling for it. And again, for me, to see the Corellian tradition in the hands of the new first priesthood, first elder, existing first director, I feel pretty confident for the future. I think things are going to go very well. Now, nothing ever goes forward without situations. That's always going to be the case. But I think that the future is secure. And, for me, that was very important. Had I died well, 2 Februarys ago, it turns out the future was not so secure as I might have thought it would be. And I am grateful to Spirit for having um, sent me back at that time because things needed to be secured for the future. And I'm very grateful for that. And Dee Dee in the chat room says, I was having experiences leading up to the actual rituals from being in the sheer presence of the ancestors. Yeah, it was very strong energy that affected certainly Reverend Dee Dee, many other people too. It if you doubt that psychic energy is real, I'll tell you, if you'd been there this weekend, you would not. It was palpable, as it often is in things that we do. Um, but if you look at our lessons, if you look at the things we teach and the way we teach them, if you look at the things that we do, we work with energy from the very beginning, and we work with it very deeply. And this is one of the things I will talk about. Reverend Mary says it was incredible. It was. One of the things I'll talk about in the upcoming book, Reverend Don's Book of Energy. But of course, the new book is Reverend Don's Book of Numerology. And if you haven't pre-ordered your copy, you can do that at Corellian.com, CorellianPublications.com. You can find it listed on my Facebook page. Um, and that's something I'm sure I will continue referencing for a while now. But my second story for this week, coming from the pagan community, happened on the same day, Saturday, May 19th. And that was the marriage of Oberon Zell and Rhiannon Martin. And you can find photos of this all over Facebook. And it was a wonderful, joyous ceremony. And in its own way, full of beautiful pageantry and symbolism and many prominent people in attendance. And it's wonderful to see joyful events in our community this way. And Oberon has been here forever, and wonderful to see him finding new love at at a considerable age, and still going forward actively in life. And speaking as someone who is a little bit younger, but moving forward in age, it's great to see that growing older does not necessarily mean stopping or slowing down, because Oberon certainly has done neither of these things. And I want to wish Oberon and Rhiannon every happiness in their marriage. I had the pleasure of spending time with them at Nashville Pagan Pride last year, and that was very pleasant. Of course, I've met Oberon long, long ago, and had many meetings with him, many interviews we've done with Oberon over the years. But it was good to see him and Rhiannon together, and I think that they do have a wonderful relationship. So that's my happy story for the week, and then I have a sad story. And some of you, I think, oh, and Reverend Dee Dee says, "May their union always reflect the great right, and may their joy ever be abundantly overflowing." Absolutely. Third story, Dagonet Dewr, one of the founders of the Pagan Pride Day and the Pagan Pride movement, has passed into spirit within more or less the last week. Um, and that's a sad piece of news. His actual name was Duke Egbert, and he did an awful lot, I think, for the pagan community with the Pagan Pride movement. If you're not familiar with Pagan Pride, I don't see how you could not be familiar with Pagan Pride. But it's a public outreach movement. It was always intended to be exactly that. Different from many earlier movements that were focused inward in the community, Pagan Pride was always focused outward. It was heavily inspired by Chicago's Pagan Expos, and Dagonet was quite happy to say that, and did so on occasion. But the idea was local pagan groups and local pagan merchants come together to showcase our community to the wider world. And Pagan Pride was always intended as a media event. It was always intended as an outreach event. Not so much an event for the pagan community, though it generally is, but rather an event to introduce the pagan community to the wider community. And having been involved in the Pagan Expos done by Ed the Pagan back 20 odd years ago, um, I am very much of the point of view that this kind of event is vitally important, and I loved seeing Pagan Pride take the idea and spread it throughout, certainly throughout the community. And Reverend Mary in the chat room is one of the organizers of Nashville Pagan Pride, and I was involved for many years with Melanie Goodall in Jacksonville, and the Jacksonville Pagan Pride. And there's a Chicago Pagan Pride that was for many years run by Twyla York, now run by new people. And it's just, I think, a wonderful way, one, for our community to come together, and two, to reach out to that wider community. And I think that I hope that we continue to see it grow, even after the passing of Dagonet Dewr. Um, he did many, many things, not only this, but this is the thing that he'll be remembered for. He was also a witch school mentor at one time, and um, a very accomplished person. So that's my sad story for this week. Although, sad is a relevant term. When a person dies at the end of a life filled with accomplishment, I don't know that I really would want to call it sad. It's more something to celebrate the wonderful things that they did. Um, and I really am very much of the opinion that when someone dies unnaturally young, um, Some of you are familiar with Saint Katrina of the Paladins. Um, Wonderful woman, only 23 years old when she crossed into spirit. That was very sad. And for such a young person, she left behind such a body of work, more than some people do in 60 years. Um, but when someone has lived their life and done the things they wanted to do and done well with them, I think that rather than be sad, we should celebrate what they did. And so with Dagonet, we want to say, hail the traveler and hail the accomplishments that were achieved in this world. And I think that one of the things that distinguishes our community, hopefully, from certain others, is our attitude toward death and crossing into spirit and reincarnation. Um, because I think it's one of the great strengths of our movement, um, that we don't really have the same attitude toward death because we know it's only a transition. We know the spirit is still there. We know that we will return to this life in a new form. And I think that sometimes some of our people um, give in to earlier conditioning in such moments. But I think that as we go forward, we must make sure that our youth are strongly aware of the eternal nature of the soul, the eternal nature of incarnation. And this is one of the reasons that working with the ancestors is so important. When you work with the ancestors, you have direct experience of this. I was talking about the oracle in the investiture earlier. When you see the oracle, you'll know what I mean when I say it was unexpected and somewhat eccentric. Not at all the oracle that I thought they would be giving, at least in its particulars. Um, but of course, it often isn't what I would be expecting. And the fact that it directly referenced conversations that the new first priesthood had previously had, um, makes it impossible for me to have come across it through anything but psychic means. It must be a message from the ancestors, because I would have had no idea that this had any relevance to them. To me, it seemed utterly irrelevant altogether. Humorous, but irrelevant. But it was not. It was directly relevant to something very particular. When you have those experiences, you can't really question the survival of the soul in the way that you could if you didn't have those experiences. When you work with spirits, when you work with psychic issues, you encounter these things and you receive the proof of them. And I don't know if you can hear them or not, but the local werewolves are being quite extravagant at the moment. You guys are not supposed to be in wolf form at this moment. It's daytime, but they'll do what they want. Um, oh, they did hear me. Okay. Well, anyway, as I was saying, one of one of the expressions that has stuck with me. You often hear people say in our movement that we do not believe in magic, we do not believe in psychism, etc. We know it because we've experienced it. And Reverend Mary says that Hella is barking back at them. Um, yeah, they can sometimes be quite loud, but cheerfully so. But when you experience these things, you still have your moments because we're human, and it's natural to have moments of doubt or concern. But you have all the evidence you need to put those doubts to rest because you have experienced it. You've had the examples in front of you. One of the biggest examples I have was running around the floor earlier. I don't know if you heard that or not. Were she still here, I would hold her up for the camera. But here in the house where I live, we have a blunt example of reincarnation in the form of Bella and Ember. And these are two tiny puppies. Um, they're Chiweenies. They're never going to be anything but tiny. But They have given very ample evidence that they are reincarnations of the previous two dogs who lived here, Precious and Jules. And how did they do that? By having the same behaviors that Precious and Jules demonstrated. Um, Jules had a very particular way of laying that you don't normally see a dog do. Ember does the same thing. It took a while for her to first do it, but it's not something she could have picked up from any other source. Bella displays many of Precious's behaviors. And one of the interesting things that was remarked the other day is that Precious would never allow her nails to be trimmed, but Jules would. Bella does not like to have her nails trimmed. Ember doesn't mind it. It's a remarkable example of reincarnation. And if you knew Precious and Jules, and you now know Bella and Ember, it's inescapable. So when we think about things like reincarnation, when we think about crossing into spirit, we really shouldn't have um, any real doubts because we've seen it. When you have, as I have done, spent your lifetime talking to those who are in spirit and seen proof, it's very clear. And um, I'm not really sure what to say about that other than the idea that it is great strengths of our movement that not everyone has in their own experience. The fact that we can have that kind of proof of the afterlife and future incarnations, that we can actually see it and know it as a certain thing. Of course, any person can have these experiences, but many other movements do everything in their power to dampen them or to avoid them altogether or even to demonize them because their teachings do not conform to these ideas. But for us, the things we teach are readily demonstrated in our lives. And as someone who has repeatedly come close to crossing into spirit, that's a great comfort. And, all of us one day will come to that point, and I hope that when your day comes, far from now, that you'll remember these things and remember all of the times you've received messages from those who are in spirit, perhaps received visions from those who are in spirit, seen examples of reincarnation, and know that there is nothing to be afraid of in transitioning into spirit, that it is a natural part of life. And I am grateful to Goddess and God and the ancestors for providing all of these examples, which I'm sure would be provided to everyone if only they were willing to accept them. And I think that will be my last comment for today, that the glory of the universe is there all around us if we're willing to accept it. And so often I've seen people fight hard not to do that because of their training from other movements. And what I would say is receive the love of deity and of spirit. It's there, receive the messages, and you will find that it is a great comfort in life. With that, I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to remind you that the double investiture video will be airing tonight at 7 Central and 8 Eastern here on Corellian TV and our many platforms. And I will be back next week. I hope that you will join me then. And thank you for joining me today. I love spending this time with all of you. Thank you, everyone in the chat room and everyone not in the chat room. And let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives. We rejoice in your presence in our lives and in the many messages that you give us to assure us of the continuation of life and of the magic that is everywhere around us. Help us to embrace this and to live it in every moment. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, and knowing you are always with us, still from respect, we thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always, and I'll see you on Monday.